Welcome back. It is episode 120. I am your host, Jacob Harris. This podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex and Powerfit Rockingham. Today, I am joined by Matt Burton from River City Barbell. Thanks for being here, man.
That's all right, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate getting me on here and just having a chat. I'm always open and happy to chat with anyone about, powerlifting, what we do and what other people do and just mental health and anything like that. So it's a real good pleasure because I've been listening to your podcast now for I think I'm up to like the hundreds in your episodes. So I've been listening to it for a very long time. So it's a great pleasure to be on something that I listen to a lot.
Well, thanks, man. No, I really, like I said, it means a lot to me to know that because you know yourself having one, you don't really know who's listening. And I would say that I'm familiar with yourself too, and have been for a while. So it's my pleasure to have you here, but it's also a pleasure to know that you've been like a loyal listener for a period of time. And I think it's just one of those things that a podcast is just everyone's got one now, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're all good.
I still don't get the thing when someone comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, I listen to your podcast," and I'm like, "You put out good stuff, and I love what I'm like." I still don't get it. All the messages I get randomly every now and then and be like, "You probably get the same thing, like, oh, this episode was really cool when you said this in this pinpoint," and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't remember that. I've done 155 episodes. I don't. It's kind of hard to remember what you said there.
Yeah, I feel like I get it with when I speak to certain people,
Yeah,
and so like I'll have someone on who's just I definitely find that positivity is like a big one. So when someone's really positive and they're not just regurgitating like toxic positivity bullcrap that is
yeah,
like written on bumper stickers, you know what I mean? Like it's a person who's genuinely just has a certain outlook on life that I think people find pleasurable to listen to because I think sometimes it's just about kind of almost feeling like you have someone around you that talks in a way that you actually need to think
yeah,
yourself. Like you need to be thinking that way, but it's all good for someone to tell you to think that way. But if you're hearing that stuff around you, then that's obviously kind of a big part of what helps you improve as a person, right?
yeah, for sure.
So someone like yourself, obviously, we're both doing something similar, but you've come from a different background and doing different things. And you mentioned before, I mean, you're almost 40, so it's like
Yeah,
you've got a bit of time on me as well. So I know that obviously that period of time you've learned a hell of a lot of lessons and things like that. So you've got that to offer, even on just like amongst other things. That's something that's people are getting from you almost every time they listen because of how much
yeah.
you've learned.
I-
Um,
I'd say, yeah, I've made a lot of mistakes in life, a very lot. Like even a lot before I was even a business owner, as a kid, whatnot. Went through a lot as a child. Um, you know, Growing up wasn't easy for me. And I've been on myself a journey for like the last 8 years just with mental health as well, trying to better myself and become a better person. And yeah, recently got some real answers at the start of this year with some stuff that I was diagnosed, which was ADHD and ASD. And I think that now I'm on a journey to kind of just be able to help other people that struggled like me, because I struggled a lot as a kid and I struggled a lot through my 20s to a point where I reached 30 and actually tried to commit suicide. And that was the biggest wake up call for me as a person that I needed help, because you know yourself as a male, and this is something that I speak openly about on social media a lot, is that males don't be vulnerable. We're not people who we we are thought to be these hard working people that need to have always have this, big tough front about of us that we can get through everything, but no one ever speaks about their problems. And then it gets to a point where there's so much male suicide in the world and in Australia in general because no one gets the help or seeks the help or talks about their problems, and it becomes so much that they can't like handle it, and then they just end their life. And I want to change that for people, but I also want to change it for people in the sense of like, me being open and vulnerable on social media about how I feel day to day and week to week, whether I'm going through a good thing or a bad phase in my life, so that people who are like me can connect with me. And, like they might message me one day and I tell them one thing and it could save their life.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
a big impact that you can
Yeah.
have that I think people don't focus on enough in the right way. I feel like we have a lot of, for me, it's something like mental health awareness, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, what you've just talked about, and you're speaking about what you've gone through, all those sorts of things. A sort of issue I have with a lot of the way it's approached, I guess, maybe like I don't like to be like society, but sort of, right? Is it's a little bit like we still need to make people aware of it. And
Yeah.
it's not that we don't, and I would never get on the back of that. But sometimes I find it a bit weird. I find that we spend so much time being like mental health awareness and raising money and all this sort of stuff, and are you okay day and all these sorts of things. And I would never say that any of those things are certainly not a hindrance, and I wouldn't say that they're useless. But for me, I'm a little bit like, well, none of those things are directly necessarily impacting someone enough to help them. So what you're talking about is essentially that, right? You went through these things. So you then, if you then impact someone and then you're able to help them with that, that's actually helping. Where if you're just on Are You Okay Day walking past someone and then in the gym and be like, hey man, just want to make sure you're okay today. He knows it's Are You Okay Day. He kind of just feels like you're maybe just generically asking. And he's like, yeah, man, yeah, everything's all good, bro. Hope you're
You
good.
know, like I'm going to go deep into this one and I'm going to roast the shit out of Are You Okay Day
Yeah.
because even though people are raising money for Are You Okay, why did it take me 12 months to be able to get into an appointment to get diagnosed for ADHD and ASD and then go through a cycle of numerous amounts of appointments and thousands of dollars to happen? Like, and I'm not the only one that's been through this. I know so many people, and I was misdiagnosed by someone 3 years into my journey with BPD instead of ADHD and ASD. So then I went through another 4 years of cycle trying to figure out what was wrong with me, thinking it was BPD when it wasn't. But like all these things outside asking people if they're just okay, they're not helping our system be better in Australia to create better systems so that people like myself don't get fall through the cracks. Because a lot of people, it's just lucky enough that I had the finances there to do it because it cost me $3,000 to get diagnosed. And then it still cost me more because I've got to go back every 6 months to just for my medication and everything to make sure it's working and whatnot and just all that type of stuff. So it's an ongoing cost. But there's all these things to raise money for mental health awareness and ask people if they're okay. But what do they do? Because their mental health system is still fucked. Like that's the easiest way to put it. So are they doing anything for us, or is it just a cop out so that they can push it all under the fucking bridge and hide it all? And that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was alluding to without trying.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I don't. Once again, being negative isn't necessarily us helping anything either. But
Yeah, for sure.
we're also being just honest about the fact that
Yeah.
in what we're saying, there's right. Me sitting here and be like, "Oh, are you okay?" That's fucking stupid. That's
Yeah.
not really helping anyone, right? That's
No,
just
not at all.
complaining about something. And even though I am saying something that may have some truth to it, it's also like when you're at, I don't know, maybe the jobs that you've had, that places where I've worked, especially when I worked on like a mine site, things that would always get said, especially in maybe jobs where you're a tradesman or something, would be like, "Don't come to me with a problem, come to
Mm.
me with a solution," right?
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. We can't sit here and be like, well, that's crap if we don't have anything else to say, but you are saying something else. And that's the point
But
of the
then this is why, like with my journey, obviously I always wanted to be a powerlifting coach. And powerlifting saved my life because it gave me something to focus on and move forward and make small progressions in my life to show me that I could do things that I never thought I could do or achieve. So therefore that carried over into my life. And then as I went on my mental health journey, I realized that, I do all these things, I get better, and I become a better person and I grow and I change and I make mistakes and I become better. But then now I take all that stuff from the last 8 years and I'm like, well, if the health system's fucked, I'm going to get all these people that have fallen through the cracks. I'm going to bring them into powerlifting and I'm going to show them what I went through at their younger age so they don't have to suffer alone by themselves. they can come into the River City community where most of the people in my community are either on the spectrum or have had mental health stuff, and they can be surrounded by a supportive group of people where there's like 30 to 40 of us that all just kind of push each other to train hard. When you fall through the cracks, people will check in on you. Like I will be chasing people down if they disappear, like all that type of stuff. Like my other coach, if her client disappears, and because I got where she's got a couple of girls on the spectrum which have ASD, and they go through a bit of ups and downs, I'll get on the phone and ring them, and I'll call them until they answer their phone, and then they'll answer their phone finally a week or two later and be like, "What's going on? Talk to me, blah blah blah. All right, we need to get you back in the gym. This is the strategies we need to do to get you there. I know this happens. I feel like it. I've been through it. So I don't want these people to suffer like I did for like 15 years, I want these people to realize until they can afford to get the help, they have the support network within our group, which can build them to be better and thrive while our system in Australia isn't doing their job where it needs to be done."
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's pretty much everything to be said in the way you just put it, man. And it's about just
Yeah.
having school systems in place in different areas. And like you said, whether you're specifically a powerlifting gym or even just a gym in general and specialize in powerlifting and people feel like they can come there, it should
Yeah.
be like this in lots of places, right? It should be the same
Yeah.
in the fighting community, bodybuilding community, anything not fitness related as well. It should just generally be more of a thing where it's not about asking if you're okay.
Yeah.
It's just about like people being okay because they're in the right environment. And then if they're not, feeling like they can say something. Because if we had to just check in on every single person on the planet, we're not going to be able to do that, right? Because we're also worried about ourselves. We just need to create a kind of place where people can feel like they can say something, but also there's also a side of it that's awkward because there's an area, right, of people who are also are just being, I don't want to say like this, there's no other way to say it than without just like sort of, it's not that you're being like a weak cunt, right? But there is an area of people who are like, my phone charger's broken and I can't Snapchat my friend and I had my lunch and I dropped on the floor and my day's ruined, and it's like, okay, that sort of stuff can I don't know how, but there is an area of people that somehow find a way to move that into like, I've got mental health problems. And it's like, well, hang on a second. You just had a couple of shitty things happen in your day, and now you're acting as if there's a big problem there. So that's the other thing. I think there needs to be like a bit of a differentiation between like mental illness, which is exactly what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
mental health, as opposed to like, we also need to be able to help people just understand emotions and their feelings, right? Rather than, because someone could be feeling those things or be going through a couple of bad things and maybe they go through a breakup or something. And then they go to a doctor and then they're also misdiagnosed, which is obviously like what you're
Yeah.
talking about. And then they're given antidepressants when they don't fucking need them.
But I think the biggest problem is that people go to a doctor. The GP is like the last place you should be going. Like, because people go to a doctor and then doctors automatically just their first thought. Like, have you ever been to a doctor with an injury or something, like you've hurt your shoulder or something, whatever? And the first, like, I don't even want to relate it so much to mental health, but even to like, someone walks in that's my client, they're like, "Oh, my left shoulder's hurting, can't lift it up this far. All right, here you go. Here's some painkillers." It's just their solution is just, you know, this pill will fix your problem, go away. Like, and that's not the way you fix it, because like you said, you want people to understand their emotions. So for them to understand how they feel and comprehend things, they need to go talk to a psych, which a lot of people in my era, when I grew up, if you talked to a psych, you had mental health problems and you were crazy. That's how. So I never spoke to anyone till I was 30 because of the thought that was in my head, because my mate's mum was a psych, and that's the way my circle spoke about it. Like, you were crazy if you were seeing someone like that. So it's like I got to 30 and I was like at the like suicide. And the point was like I needed to get help. So I had to go get help. And it's just now I look at it the same as gym. I still see a psych once a month, every month. And it's not even necessarily about needing to see someone because I need to see someone and talk to someone, but it's reps and sets. It's no different from going to the gym. I'm just growing my brain to be stronger so I can be a better person for everybody that sits around me in the future. And I feel like a lot of people could learn from that, whether you are going there to kind of get over something and learn something about yourself or deal with trauma or whatever it is, but you're just doing reps and sets to become better because as a kid, as we grow up, a lot of us go through a lot of traumatic stuff that stays with us through our whole life until the end of the years. And you don't realize until you get to like 30 all these things that might have actually affected you from your past are starting to come up, whether it's in relationships, in friendships, at your job, anything like that. And if you don't deal with it, it's only going to go worse as you get older.
I can completely relate to that, man. That's I agree with what you're saying. Doctors are psychologists are doctors, right? So
Yeah.
that's the other thing we want to point out here. When
Yeah.
you're saying don't
That,
go to a doctor, we're not being the guy who's like, don't go to a doctor. You know, like
nah, just,
it's context, right? Like a
yeah.
general practitioner who is,
GP.
yeah, someone who you're going to for antibiotics because you've got the flu is doesn't necessarily need to be the same person that you're trying to fix your head with. You know, like they're not specializing in that, and you're not going to a specialist, so you shouldn't be expecting specialized treatment, right? That's like
Yeah.
going to a personal trainer and you know or like a maybe that's even still too specific. Maybe going to literally like a fitness class where it's $10 and everyone's doing the same thing and being like, I need you to help me rehab my knee. It's going to be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're in the wrong place for that, mate. You know what I mean? And you can't then have this service and then really walk away from complaining about it because you can, but you shouldn't because you should have been pointed in the right direction. You obviously weren't, and that's the problem. We don't point people necessarily in the right direction. And I know when I even went to look into that side of things to get a psychologist as well, it's actually harder than it should be. I found the
I
process
need to.
off-putting, right? Because why should it be even slightly off-putting? As soon as someone is interested, I'm not saying it shouldn't cost money or anything like that. I definitely think it should be more affordable than it can. You know,
Oh, definitely.
it's quite expensive, but
Yeah.
that should come from government subsidy. I'm not saying psychologists should be paid less. I just think that we need to have more support in that area. But I know for me, I'd much rather subsidy on mental health and people getting psychologists than my electricity bill. You know, I
Oh,
think
yeah, for sure.
that matters more. But that's a whole different. We're not politicians here. But in what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, and there's a lot of other things I think I learned with relationship as well. That the biggest thing now is it's really interesting to you're very I don't know how would I put it. You're analytical, but you're also someone who is very in touch with their emotions, and I can tell that you're very reflective and can look at things from a different perspective. You're very open-minded. I speak to a lot of people who aren't, and I deal with people on a daily basis who aren't. I work in retail, and sometimes people come in, and people sometimes, for some reason, will just share things with you or say things to you. And
Yeah.
sometimes I have an Aussie bloke who come in and will just share some weird, random, half racist, weird opinion with me or something, and I'll just be like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, have a good day, mate. See you later." And I just go like, "Jesus, that guy was a bit crazy," but it's one of those things where it's actually that it's harder to come by, and I think it's got. He probably came from a similar, let's say he's 45, he came
Yeah.
from a similar time as yourself, has never spoken to anyone, probably would have that reaction. Oh, I'm not going to speak to someone. Fuck that. I don't need to.
Mm.
And then he's the kind of guy who can't even process information enough to actually have an educated opinion because he actually doesn't even know how to control what he feels.
I used to be the most arrogant, biased person you'll ever meet when I was in my 20s and 30s. And not the 20s, like early from 30 downwards. And everybody else, like I did a podcast on the barbell coach and physio, which I'll reference back to. That was about playing the victim, and it was not having a dig at anybody. It was actually having a shot at the old me because I played the victim for years. Everything in my 20s was it's his fault. Oh,
No,
you're
fuck. The camera's gone off. This is. Give me 2 seconds, mate.
you're right.
I feel like technical difficulties have been high in this
No
one.
idea.
We've both had things turning off on us, and All kinds of shit. Give me 2 seconds. Should not be happening. Come on now. Of course, this is the way it's going to go, isn't it? Oh, I reckon I'll have to swap to this for a second. Let me see. How horrible is that? Look at that.
What happened to you go flat?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened with it, but we'll use this to continue because although this is frustrating, this is the audio will be fine. So I'll just try not to
Yeah,
move too much.
that's all right.
Sorry about that, mate. Please continue.
No, so talking about, and so yeah, like obviously, like I went through. I did an episode on the podcast about playing the victim, and it was never a shot at anybody that plays the victim at all. It was actually a shot at the old me because I used to play the victim, and I didn't realize how bad I used to play the victim until like I started seeing a psych, and I used to blame all my problems on my parents for my being raised the way I was, the stuff I went through as a kid, physical abuse, like mental abuse, being bullied at school. And it was always like everybody else made me this way, and that's the way I'm going to be like this. So I'm just going to be a dick the rest of my life because of everybody else. And then I realized at 30, when I started to get help, it's like, I can't do this if I want to move forward in life. Like, I need to shut up and just be like, hey, the I'm no longer everyone else is no longer the problem. I'm the problem because if I don't move past all this stuff, I'm going to continue to blame everybody else and play this victim card. So I had to change that. And if I didn't change that, I wouldn't be where I am today as a coach because, like I wouldn't be able to be as empathetic as I am to my clients. I wouldn't be able to, talk on social media about like what I go through on a day to day basis. And I say this to people all the time. I'll post posts and I'll sit there sometimes on my finger on the delete button because I'm like, what's everyone going to think about what I just wrote? Like, because I read it back to myself sometimes because a lot of the time it's my journals because I journal every day about my feelings, and that's one strategy I've used over the years to just help me understand myself again. But I'll post these things and I'll be like, oh fuck, I should delete that, and then a couple of comments will come up, be like, "Oh my god, I feel like this," and then it reassures me that I'm not on my own in this situation. There's so many other people that feel like me, so this is reaching other people to make them feel like I feel right now, where they're responding to it. So it's not bad. Like I should continue to do this because it's not about me anymore. It's about helping other people. So I can't be that person that plays the victim anymore. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do all this stuff that I do.
Yeah, that's an important lesson to play, man, for sure. Like, an important lesson to learn, and I think
Yeah.
probably one I've learned myself as well. I think, as I said before, there's that area that you can fall into where you can. There's nothing wrong with weakness or vulnerability.
Oh,
That's
for
kind of
sure.
what we're getting at here. But I think that there's that level of also people not, as you said, sets and reps. You're trying to keep yourself mentally in a certain place. That a part of that is resilience, right? You
Yeah.
need to be able to, and but the problem with that is I think people go about it the wrong way, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. So people will ignore things, right? They'll ignore their feelings and they'll get through things without talking to anyone about it. They'll suppress things. They'll have things happen. They'll keep suppressing things, and then they'll talk as if they've done what you're talking about doing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but I got through it, and right, it's like, well, you never actually dealt with it. So, and you mentioned this before, right? You didn't deal with anything. So this is actually just going to come up later, and it's probably actually already playing a huge part in your life at the moment, in your relationships and your friendships, and you're not recognizing it because you never tried to deal with anything, whether it was talking to someone, self reflection, self improvement, in terms of a lot of people have issues just in terms of, I'll use an example like attention span. attention span is a huge problem now, and something that I think people have issues with in their relationships. Things like mobile phones cause a lot of problems, right? Some people will just get lost in their mobile phone and not spending time with their partner, they're not being present. Something like that would be a self reflection upon that. Wow, I'm actually on my phone a lot. What do I need to do to try and help that? Well, I need to try and stay off my phone, especially when I'm around my partner, so I can actually spend time with them, because I feel like I'm actually in the same room as them, but I'm not actually really acknowledging them, and
Yeah,
that's
totally.
affecting us. And also, it's a dopamine problem on my end. So, what I actually could also look at doing is spending time in the car without any music playing, or spending time in silence in certain periods throughout the day, and maybe trying to watch a little bit less television and things like that, and restoring some natural dopamine so that you don't feel the need to be distracted, have your phone in your hand, doing things like this, and you're back. You can bring yourself back to a more natural level so that you can then be present with the person that you're in a relationship with. And something like that could just be a small lesson that you learn. And once again, we've kind of hit those points that you talked about. You did it. There was some self-reflection. You realized you needed to get help with it. You looked at how to get help with it. You didn't maybe necessarily need to speak to a psychologist. Maybe you were able to, like I said, come across, oh, actually, I've got a dopamine problem. I've got an issue. How do I deal with that? Oh, okay, these are some of the ways that I can deal with it. And then you make your way back to that initial point, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I've actually made improvement because I've addressed it, rather than just, it's people will be like, yeah, I know, I just fucking, yeah, I'm just really bad at it. Hey, and you're like,
Yeah,
are
they
you
just
gonna,
laugh it off and move forward on it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. Yeah, she just gets real shitty at me. I don't know why. She's
But
like, it's
it's the
probably a me.
same. The funniest thing I see is like people laugh about the mental health thing too. It's like they're like, "Oh, I'm crazy," and they're like, they just like it. They make a bit of a joke out of it. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, if you're crazy, man, it's time to fucking get some help and like seek some growth in your life. Otherwise, you're gonna keep living the same cycle. And I see it all the time because I lived the same cycle for, you could say 10 years of my life from 20 to 30. And that cycle ended up with me almost fucking not being here. And the fact that like I made it out of that, and I still say to this day that was the biggest wake up call in my life because I could be fucking dead now, like, and I'm grateful for that second chance every day of my life. But um, I lost a friend at the start of the year this year to suicide, one of my best mates. And that hit me fucking really hard. Like it put me in a depression. And it wasn't just because of the fact that I lost him, but it was the fact that that could have been me. That could have been me. And I'm like, I would not be here like 8 years later helping other people, and there's so many people on my team that I sit here and say right now is like, I know that I've impacted their lives in ways where they have actually bettered their life to become someone that they never thought they could be. And it was all just through lifting. And, it was the same thing for me. When I came up as a lifter, I didn't have a support network. The people I was around would like belittle me and put me down and bully me in my early 30s, and no one wanted to help me because I like my mental health was really bad. Everyone, like, I got kicked out of gyms. I just got treated like absolutely like shit by people, by my coaches. And then it took one dude to come into my life, man. And I'll always give him a shout out because he's my best friend, and to this day, and he's always done everything for me, and that's William Crozier. But he came into my life and literally just fucking was like the biggest impact on me ever. He helped me with a lot of stuff mentally in the sense of like I don't think if he even tried to do it, he just was a good friend and did it. And just guided me in the right direction. And the day I said that I wanted to try and be a coach, the first thing he responded to me was like, if you need anything, just reach out to me and I'll always help you. And since that day, and I can sit there and say 6 years later, he still answers all my questions, still does everything to help me out in every way he can. I just went through a bit of a rough patch myself now, and he's always just been there to help me out. And that is a reflection of who I am today because of that guy doing that for me. I now am the same person towards my clients.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've spoken to Will before,
Mm.
quite some time ago, and yeah, the way he holds himself, I can see him being that kind of character, and it's good that you've had a coach, but more than that, which I think we all know is what like a really good coach ends up being.
Yeah.
Right? Like my best clients, and you know all my clients really, I'm pretty much friends with. Most of them I'm friends with because the relationships get formed over those years, and all of a sudden you sort of train someone for 4 or 5 years, and it's much more than just a coach. And like you said, there's other things to it. So it's you being able to even just have someone to talk to. That's the way that it should be, because that's that are you okay thing again. Like you shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be asked, and there shouldn't need to be all this kind of weird stuff around it where it needs to be like banners and like oh man, I've been at workplaces and stuff, and it's like they'll hand out socks or something, and it's like, oh man, I'm not gonna ever say that anything's hindering it, because it's never going to be making it worse. But is this really the best we can do? Like a
Yeah, that's exactly right.
pair of socks that say like mental health awareness on them, like
You'd
I
be
feel
better
like
off giving everybody a mental health day once a year just so they can have a day off work. Like it's
yeah, I mean, if you really want to go that far, there's structural issues in our society for sure. I've just had a conversation with today with someone about it, and they were saying the same thing of something with a person in their life who is essentially works too much, and but they have to, because there's so many other things going on that we're not going to go into because of whatever inflation, all that stuff. But it just gets to a point now where people are just so willing to trade their mental health for so many just different things, whether it's money or pleasure or just like comfort. People are willing to trade it because they think that what they're getting is worth it.
yeah, and I agree with that because like I can talk from the age of like 16, I was told by my father that you need to get a trade, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so like I was pushed into a career that I never really enjoyed. Um, and I worked that and it was like Groundhog Day for 15 years, just working. Whereas, like, I feel like if I'd been educated right in school and I'd been diagnosed with ASD and ADHD as a kid, I could have found a better direction in where I ended up as an adult and been able to work towards something that was going to entertain who I was and grow that way. So, like, through my 20s, I just literally I can remember it now. It was like I'd go to work from Monday to Saturday. I'd come home, I'd go out with my friends on a Saturday night and do whatever. And then Sunday I would sit at home in my room depressed and miserable, and I used to call it Sunday blues because I didn't know what like depression was back then. I didn't know what anxiety was. And then I'd be anxious, like, oh, we've got another week again to go back to a job I don't like and make shit money that I've been trying to do my whole life and just live that life for 10 years. And then it got to a point where like something happened, like a relationship broke down, and that was just like the icing on the cake, man. And it just I broke. And I was like, I can't do this shit anymore. I can't live this life like this anymore. And then what happened happened. And then I was like, if I came out the other side of that, and I was like, if I don't make a change, I'm gonna be going through the same cycle again. And I don't want to ever be in that position again where I feel like I don't want to be alive. So, there's a point where you hit a breaking point and you can either make change or you can just live that cycle again. And coming from a person who watched my sister go through very bad cycles of mental health because of drug abuse and stuff like that, I didn't really want to be in that position. Like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs at all. Besides, performance enhanced drugs, but I don't say anything more about that. But like I don't want to see myself go through that cycle of where I get back to a point where I don't ever want to be suicidal again. And a big part of that is me just being able to find the things I need to do to make sure that I get on that track where I need to be. And if I don't do that, I'm just going to fall back in that position again. I'm a lot stronger these days than I was back then because I've done a lot of, like I've said before, reps and sets, but I still have bad days. But I find being able to help others as well really gives me a sense of achievement to be able to make myself feel like I need to be here because that's what I want to do is help other people. And that was my purpose. And I feel like a lot of the time I had no purpose in life. And when I had no purpose in life, there was no reason for being me being living. And that's why at the end of that time, I was like, that's why I didn't want to be here because I had no purpose. And the day I found my purpose and I found powerlifting, um, I found like I had a purpose for the first time in life. So, and I think that a lot of people don't find their purpose very early on in their life, but if you do, and you can knuckle down into it, you have the best life. Like, I feel like I missed, 10 or so years of my life because I had no direction where I needed to find things, and I didn't really have. I could say I raised myself from 16, pretty much. So I didn't even have the adult skills that were needed to go into life into my 20s because, like I raised myself pretty much. I was out of home at 16, and yeah, like I never knew that you could get skills somehow or whatever because I hadn't been educated in that way either because I was out of school in grade 10, and no one ever said anything to me as I was growing up. They were like, no one ever said like you need to get help or you need to do this, you need to speak to someone. Everyone was just always like, Matt's a dick. Like Matt needs to grow up. Matt's immature. It's like, but no one ever pointed me in the right direction for me to grow up or to me to get help to be a better person until I got to my 30s and got help, And it's like now if I have a friend and he's stepping out of line or he's doing something wrong, it's like, bro, I really think that you should go speak to someone, because maybe he'll waste 5 or 10 years of his life because he didn't have that one person in their life to be like, hey, you just need to talk to someone. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger part of it. And I feel like we said, as we mentioned before, there's just a fatigue around it, I think, because of the holidays and stuff like that. I feel like when it's dressed up, the way it gets dressed up sometimes, it's actually easy to shrug off, even though they
Yeah.
talk about it like it's an awareness thing. But when it's actually just about it being real, it's just like my life and a few of the people around me, like just last couple of years, and you obviously gone through the same thing. Like people are dying, man. Like people die in your life, and things happen, and it's pretty hard to deal with. So I feel like just being able to even speak to the people around you before we even talk about going to see a psych, because that is something that it's a whole different thing and should be done as well. But just the fact that, like, I guess so many people, like you could put it like this: you've got a group of guys catching up at a pub and they're all having a beer together, not talking about any of that shit. They're all dealing with it. They've all got an issue with stuff. They're all having problems. They all could use each other's advice, and just having someone listen to them, maybe not even advice, maybe just sitting and listening and just talking and just having healthy emotional conversation. But they want to get on the piss and talk shit and just do nothing productive instead, which they have the right to do. Everyone
This is
can.
our culture. That's what it is in Australia, like
Yeah.
male culture in Australia is like, oh, let's go out and get on the piss with our friends. And, you know, my wife's arguing with me or yelling at me or my kids are stressing me out. They just like forget about it and put it away for like 6 hours and then they go back to it. It's like instead of, dealing with it and trying to find ways to better it, a lot of people just bury it. And I've seen it even with my partners or even friends or whatever. They just bury their emotions and eventually they just get buried so deep that one day they just explode. And it's just fucking like everyone's like, oh, whoa, didn't see that coming. I'm like, whoa, I saw it coming a long time ago when you kept fucking burying everything. Like, they'll go through a breakup and then they'll lose a job or some stressful pop. And I see it in powerlifting as well, mainly in powerlifting because, like, we'll go through these stages and phases in powerlifting where we do like hypertrophy. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm getting jacked or whatever. Then they go strength, gets a bit harder. Then they get a peaking, and peaking pushes people to their limits in all areas, fatigue, and you just become like exhausted. And then like the littlest piece of stress in your life comes and sprinkles on top of it, and people just go and crumble. And it's like, a lot of people leave powerlifting because of that fact. It becomes so much to deal with, and they got all this other stuff coming in external. And this is why I talk a lot about external stress, because one of the major things that influences the way people train and have an outcome. It's like they get into a peak and their job work gets busier, or their girlfriend starts arguing with them, and then next minute like they just crumble and their training turns to crap. And it's like you need to learn how to manage those external things just as much as you need to learn how to manage those internal things like training and nutrition. Because if you can't manage those external things, your internal things are just going to crumble.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's the same sort of thing, man. There's other people will as
And that's it.
and shrug stuff off about feeling like shit and all this stuff
Yeah.
going on, and it's like they're not even addressing like basic stuff. Like some people just eat and sleep like shit and just drink too much and stuff. And the fact that they're like, oh, I just don't feel good. And it's like, do you need someone to tap you on the shoulder to tell you why, or do you reckon you could just look around and maybe figure it out?
I
Like,
think people don't look at the food thing a lot because food influences massively energy levels, how you feel on a day-to-day basis. And like I know because I go through peaks and valleys on a monthly basis. And I'll go through a peak and I'll be like, I feel amazing. My nutrition's in line, my training's in line, my life's really good. And then I'll hit a valley. And if I don't eat and keep my nutrition up, my valley becomes deeper. And to
hmm,
get out of that valley is even harder. So I got to make sure that I'm eating even when I'm in that lower trough. Because if I don't eat, then my energy levels get low, my
hmm.
concentration gets worse, and then also my training turns to shit, and then everything turns to shit. So, like the nutrition thing is something that you just need to try and do constantly, you know, because you need to replenish your body even when you're at your lowest.
Yeah, it's it's something that I just it's a funny point of education for me. Like that, it's just crazy how much we don't focus on it in like school and just even as adults and stuff. It's like people just don't even want to learn. Like, and I still can't even. It doesn't even blows my mind. It's like, dude, you don't have to like take it to like the next level. Like you can actually just learn something. You know what I mean? Like even just like you know, I'm not telling you to like sit there and find out what every mineral's for, but like surely just I don't know.
It's
People will eat something and then be like, "Yeah, is that okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean is that okay? Like, it's not the right question. Is it okay to eat this?"
It's not, but it's not that hard to literally eat 3 meals a day with like vegetables, carbs, and fucking, like and meat. It's like, and that's your basic outline of food that would keep you functioning good each day for a regular person.
Yeah, but
But people still struggle to do it.
it's also the kind of thing where, like you said, like people are like, "Oh, I don't know what to eat," or "Is this okay to eat?" or whatever. And it's like, as you've mentioned there, like meats and vegetables. It's like, well, it's not that complicated, right? Depending on what religion you believe in, maybe
Yeah, for sure.
the world was created 6,000 years ago. I reckon it was probably created a little bit further than that. I reckon we've been here for a bit longer than 6,000 years, but I understand that some people think that's when it was created. Around about that time, or even less than that, say 1,000 years ago, we were pretty limited on what we could eat as human beings, right?
Yeah.
Meat, fucking vegetables, fruits. It's the only stuff you could eat, right? Because it was all that was available, because it was all that's really needed for a human being to consume. So when you say, what should I eat? That's the stuff, anything else that we then created in the last 100 years that we manufacture
Yeah.
machines and process shit out of, probably not a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
people, but then you have people come around and be like, oh, it's all about balance. It's just like, it is about balance for sure, 100%. But how much you balance it is and how you respond to that is what you need to figure out. And as you've said, if you're not feeling good, then your balance is obviously off. Like, you know what I mean? So you're yawning right now. Maybe you haven't had enough carbohydrates. You know
I had a
what I
Red Bull. Does that
mean?
count?
Probably had too many carbohydrates.
I'll just blame it on my ADHD.
That's yeah, could have been that. Could have been that. But
No, like I literally have had it. Like I won't deny I've had a like rough trot this weekend. It's been pretty rough. I didn't sleep very well last night.
yeah,
But that's just a part of my life, and then I've been dealing with some stuff lately. But I know that I need to eat, so I got to eat, But I would say that I didn't eat enough food really today, but I will still go outside and eat after this podcast and then go to the gym tonight and train, like I'll do the same thing, but I can't expect the best outcome tonight because of my current situation. So that's where I integrate things like RPE and be able to use things that will account for my current situation. But um, yeah, like it's like anything with nutrition, it plays a big role on everything. But then also when we look at training and all that type of stuff as well with powerlifting, it's like as a coach, a lot of coaches I find when it comes to, I don't want to say a lot of people, but there's a lot of coaches that aren't very empathetic to people as well. And it's like you said before when it came to you talking about old workers, and I think it's my generation's parents that brought this through and it's starting to kind of fade out. But it's like that tough guy, hard on people where it's like, you'll be right, just get in there and get it done. And it's like that doesn't resolve the problem. That just makes the person feel like shit because you're not helping them to achieve what they need to achieve. And it's like I've had that type of mentality used on me before as a coach, and it didn't do me any good at all. It just made me feel like shit. I'm a very sensitive person. I will say that. Like someone can tell me fuck you, and I'll be like, oh, you fucking what? Like, I'm a very sensitive person. But that's where you just need to find someone that suits you and accounts for your needs. That's why it's very important when you look for a coach to find someone that is suitable to your needs.
Yeah, there's a big thing about that, and obviously there was a post the other day. I'm sure we both saw it about coaches and the way they speak to people and things like that.
I actually that I saw that, man, and I was like, fucking someone needed to do that, and the person that did it couldn't have been a better person to do it because he has such a large influence on our lifting in like Australia. So
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to someone about it, and I was like, I actually just it's just stupid it even needed to be a video. It's
yeah,
just
exactly right.
stupid that it even needed to be said because it's like I've had clients speak to me not well, and because of the work I've done emotionally and on myself, I've been able to respond to them, and it's like almost robotic. And I'm like, I don't really like the way that you've addressed me. I'm happy to keep on coaching you, and I'm sorry to hear about the way that you're feeling. But if you speak to me like that again, I think it's just better if we don't continue this business relationship.
I've parted with relationships because of the same thing.
Yeah,
And
but you have to respond that way as a coach, right?
yeah,
You can't also respond with their energy, right? Because obviously we're still trying to be a professional. But that alone has gone like I've had people go and it's like they 180 on you. Whoa, yeah, no, like sorry, man, I was having a bad day, and like it makes them realize, right? Because if you respond like a dickhead, they imagine what that can turn that into.
yeah, and it's like every action creates a reaction, like if you react in a fiery way, someone's going to react in a fiery way back to you. So how you approach a situation is going to be the way the outcome comes. So you can still approach people in a non-dick manner and they still come at you. So like I've had situations as a coach where people have come at me about things and it's a lot of the time the things that have happened have been a reflection of what they did, but because they didn't get the outcome that they thought they would do from what they were doing, um, they reflected onto me. And then when I'm like, hey, this is why the last couple of weeks I've been, or last couple of months I've been telling you, you need to do this, and you didn't do it. And then they'll be like, oh, but I did this. And I'll be like, okay, well, maybe I'm just not the right coach for you, and you might be better off seeking someone else. I can put you onto a few people if you like, and I'll give them references to people that are friends, whether it's like a female or male coach, and I'll just part ways with them just because, like, it's I don't have the mental capacity or mental space for drama or that type of stuff. But also, I don't want the toxicity in my crew because all it takes is one person and it just makes the environment very uncomfortable. And I've already experienced that before. So I'm very cautious when it comes to people who bring, like you said on here, you're like the negative vibe, it doesn't do anything. So if someone comes into my community and they're toxic, I'm like, all it takes is that one bad seed, and then like everybody gets a bit sour, and I'm like, I don't need that. So I'd rather remove that so that I can keep the community healthy and vibing and really good. So
Yeah, that man. That's a huge thing. That's that. Like I've worked at multiple different gyms. I know multiple different coaching circles and stuff like that. And some people are bad eggs, man, and you definitely have to remove them. I like completely agree with that because otherwise, it's just like it just doesn't help anyone. And you can see other people get sick of it too. No one likes a negative person, and I know that because I've been one, and I still can be, and I try my
yeah,
hardest now to not be when I am around other people. Because it's like in general, I try not to be, but obviously when I'm around other people, that's the biggest impact to me. I'm like, when people interact with me, the first thing I have to say to them is negative. It's that's the impression people get from me. I've met people before. There's people I've met in the industry before, and I've just met. There's someone specifically that I'm in my head right now. I'm thinking of. I met someone was pretty well respected. Met him in person, and they kind of half like shrugged me off and didn't really say anything. And they sort of weren't too interested in sort of meeting me, and then immediately started talking shit about someone to a person right next to me that I was with, and like was just going like on and on about it and was being like aggressively negative. And it probably only went on for about 5 minutes, but that was enough for me to be like, man, like I give everyone probably a bit more of a go and I give people maybe second chances, but fuck, you made one hell of a bad first impression. And I'm so off you now, you know what I mean? Because that was just so negative and gross. I've just got no time for that.
yeah, I get that, and the one I get that too. But something that I've really learned over the years too is I like, and it shoots me in the foot all the time, bro. Like it does, but a lot of the time it does shoot me in the foot. But I always give people benefit of the doubt because I know what I've been through and what my behavior was in my 20s a reflection of, and it doesn't condone it. And I never ever, I'll sit here today and I know someone might listen to your podcast that was around me that when I was a shit person, and I don't condone anything or anything I've ever done and down water it down. Um, Not to say that like I did anything major, it was just more just be a dick. But I know what I went through and I know that there's no excuses for the behavior I had, but then I also think to myself when someone else has been a dick, and what are they going through? Do they just need a hug? So maybe I just ask them if they're okay. What's going on? What's happening in your life? What do you need to talk or something like that? Because maybe sometimes people just reflect anger because anger is the first thing that comes up when they're going through shit. So, the littlest problem that someone could have had done, like I might have been rude to you and you're already fucking traumatized from something that's going on, or you've gone through a breakup, or, someone died in your life and you're struggling. And then that little person be's rude to them, and then you cop the like, they're like, oh, I fucking hate this dude. He was rude, blah, blah. You cop the wrath of it. Doesn't condone their behavior, but sometimes all it takes is like someone like me or you just going up to them and be like, hey, man, are you okay? Or they might just generally be a fucking dick? So,
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I have actually had the conversation with a few people that knew this person that have
yeah,
actually confirmed that they are just a fucking dick. But
yeah,
I
same time.
definitely know what you're saying. That's why I said like everyone deserves that second chance, and it still
Yeah.
would be given. But at the same time, I haven't made it. Uh, I haven't made it sort of like a goal of mine to be in the same room as this person at any point for that reason, because I don't think I'm really losing out on a lot by not doing that because I feel
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
yeah,
You
it's
can
just,
you can still have, I like to put it this way, you can still have people around, but it doesn't mean they have to eat at the same table as you.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and that's the greatest way to, like, I have had some conflict with a few people in the last couple of years. I won't mention any names or anything. Had some falling out relationships, but what I've always found is that things with people have never happened like firsthand, like you just seen. It's always been like I've met someone, thought they were awesome, and then slowly as our relationship became more of a friendship, I started to see that real side of them. And as I pulled myself away from them and separated myself from them because it wasn't safe for me or my mental health, they kind of come at me, like and just turned on me. And I've had someone who's actually been harassing me on social media for like the last 6 or 8 months, and I just pay no attention to it. I have no time for it. You can go say whatever the hell you want about me. You can do whatever the fuck you want about me. I know who I am. I truly know who I am. And like at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Their opinion doesn't matter to me because I know what I'm doing in my purpose and where I'm going in life and who I am. So like if you want to come at me, and waste your time and energy on me, I'm not going to give that energy back to you or that reaction back to you because at the end of the day, I'm putting energy into something that's not going to do anything for me or anybody else. So like I'd rather ignore it and tunnel my energy back into what I'm doing to make sure that I can help others and move forward. Same thing as what you talked about at the start of the podcast about the negativity stuff. Like it's just, you don't need it because it doesn't help anyone. So if someone wants to do something like that and put me on show on social media and try and make me look like a fool, go for it. But I'm not going to give energy back to it. I'm going to carry on with my day and I'm going to help people that really need help and not waste energy on things that don't need to be like entertained.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's definitely the approach to take, man. I agree, man.
But the old Matt in my 20s would have gone and fought them.
Yeah,
Like, so I've grown up a lot,
yeah.
grown up a lot, it's just a part of maturity, I guess. Like you go through a lot of things in life and you realize that like sometimes things don't matter, you know, and especially on social media, because like, I could put a post up tomorrow about something and in 2 weeks' time, no one cares about it. Well, no
Hmm.
one remembers. It's like we were talking about a topic. I won't bring it up at the start of the before the podcast. And it's like, you didn't even know certain things about that. And it's like, that just shows everything. And it's like, so don't waste energy on things that don't need to be wasted on. Put it into something that's worth using it for.
That's definitely been a big focus of mine over the last couple of years as well. And it's actually just crazy the difference that you see in your life when you just actually transfer your energy into like energy, money, time, any of that, just into things that actually benefit you and just actually stop just kind of like wasting it or putting it into the wrong things is a huge, huge difference in just all overall life experience. I think when you do that.
Yeah, yeah, and then it's like the come back to the environment thing as well. Like surround yourself with people who speak into your life, who are gonna guide you in the right direction, who are gonna influence you to be a better person, the people who are gonna call you out when you're being a dick as well. So that's one thing that I really am firm on with my friends and people that have my closest relationships. I was like, if I do something wrong, fucking tell me on that spot right there and then. Because I can't be a better person, I can't grow, and I can't change if I'm being a dick. And then also, if I'm being a dick and you hold resentment to me, our relationship's going to fall apart. So I'd rather you just be like, mate, you're being a dick. You did this to me. Okay, sorry, I won't do it again. You know?
Yeah, that's the communication thing we mentioned before, just in
Yeah.
terms of the way people are emotionally. Some people just don't do that, and that's like it's not about blaming them, but it's also like just once again, as a society, we need to feel like we can say something to the people around us, and whether it's asking them for help or giving them something to reflect on, just pretty much like you said. Like, what I mean? I've had people in my life just mention like, well, you do this or something like along those lines. I've noticed you do a bit of this or you do a bit of this. And like that in itself is like, if you don't learn, like if you don't have someone be like, oh, you may like I said, negativity. It could be as simple as that. Hey man, like, why are you going to be so negative about everything? It's like if you don't have someone say that to you, obviously you are doing it, but no one's communicating anything to you. You need to have people around you that say that as well, like you said, are willing to bring it up, because also it's frustrating when you've been doing that, and then it's like someone finally does say something, and then they'll say stuff like, "Oh, well, yeah, they could be bringing up that it's been happening for months," and you're like, it's not about blaming them, but it's like like months have gone by and you've not felt like you can say anything to me. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of relationship do we have if you feel like you can't say something to me and because you're worried about my reaction? You know what I mean? But then that also says something about you if you're reacting, if you can't take any criticism or anything. You know, there's kind of keeps on going, but it just shows you that like that kind of suppressing behavior that we do have in society in multiple different areas can be not beneficial for people. Um,
And
but
I think that's sorry, I think that stems a little bit from my parents' generation, you know, like because my dad was always someone that suppressed his emotions or whatnot, and I think that generation of like my dad's generation, he's be about in his 65 now, closer to 70. But they were just like you go to work, you work hard, that's what you do, you buy a house, you have kids, and you just got to be the man of the house. There's no like you don't talk about things. I know some other people's parents might have been different, but that was what my household was like. And it's like that's how I grew up, suppressed all my emotions because, you know, boys don't cry, boys don't talk about things, and you just get on with your day and just do what you got to do.
yeah, it's definitely it's an ongoing issue. It does seem to be better these days, but
Yeah.
as you said, it's a generational thing, and things do seem to be heading, I guess, in the right direction at least. But it's just that kind of area of us all being able to continue talking about it and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. But as we sort of, this has been, yeah, super intense, like I guess mental health focused podcast, but
Yeah.
it's been good. I think a lot of people are probably going to get something from this. But as we kind of reach the end of it, I guess one thing I want to do is switch the focus to you, just to kind of outline a little bit about yourself, because we sort of didn't do that initially, and we kind of got
Yeah.
right, which is good. But River City Barbell, when did you open?
So I started, so we're at the moment, like I literally, we're not actually a gym. So I just called it River City Barbell because of the fact that Brisbane's a city on the river and eventually I want to open a gym. Do actually have a full complete gym in my garage, like probably a hectic amount of like, you'd probably walk in there and be like, this might as well be a fucking gym. All brand new equipment and everything. But we started in 2000, and you could say I started about 2017, but I say 2018. I've been powerlifting 9 years now, and I think it was like 4 years into lifting that I was like, oh, I want to be a coach. So I started doing my certs and whatnot, got that done, and then at that point I was coached by Will, and I was like, I want to become a coach, and he's like, all right, if you want to become a coach, just ask me what you want to know or anything like that. And at that point, like Zach also worked for Nexus then too, and both Will and Zach for free, like literally mentored me for the first 2 or so years of like coaching and taught me everything that I asked or showed them programs and guided me in the right direction. And then I got to a point where I was like seeking education. So I'd come out of my full-time job as a tradie and took on took on like the actual coaching side of things full time. I got made redundant in my job, and at that time, I took that opportunity, and then COVID hit, and I lost like everything. Like you know, all my clients. I'd worked so hard for the last couple of years just to get like around 12 to 13 clients. You know, and that to a lot of people that sounds like not like much, but it was like to me that was like a hard amount of work because you know, when you come into the industry, I think like in this industry, it's fucking hard to start off because you got to build a name and no one cares about the coach no one knows about, you know. And I'm telling you, like I come in, they lost everything in COVID. Coming through COVID, I spent the whole time was like at the start of it, was like obviously we're gonna get government funding. I took some money out of my super and I was like, I'm just gonna spend this whole amount of money that I'm getting from the government and the money that I'm getting from um my super on fucking like education. So I put my ass down, like my head down, ass up, did Jamie Smith's mentorship. Then I did some courses with some stuff overseas. And I did some like obviously every webinar that came up, all that stuff that was happening during COVID, I jumped on it. I did a business course with Kyle Trainer, and learned how to run a business properly. And then I came out of COVID and I did Will's mentorship when he dropped it and his deadlift one, then Compound Performances mentorship, and then I think I did two other courses, but I can't remember what they were. So by the time I come out of COVID, I was working in a gym then, and I was just doing like one-on-ones a few times a week, and then also online coaching. But I got to a point where like I'd been so educated, I was learning now how to do things properly. And like when we all start, we all just kind of just wing it. Like everybody wings it at the start. And you're like, I don't know any of this. You got to learn. So you got to just practice on people. And then I came out, things started to really align, like learning all the stuff about biomechanics, programming, everything like that. And things started to click. And then 2 years after COVID, they announced that, or a year after COVID, they announced that year that Worlds was going to happen for IPL in Australia. And I was like, all right, this is my dream to create a team. And I always wanted to create this team that supported each other. And I was like, our main focus is going to be to get everybody into a local APL meet, get them to nationals, qualify for worlds, and take a team to worlds. And that was my high focus. So, like, I got as many athletes as I could get on board. Then we got 11 people into nationals that year. I took a massive team to nationals, which to me was like one of the best experiences because it was the first nationals we ever went to, and we had 11 athletes there. And then I went from nationals to worlds, which I think I took 7 or 8 athletes to worlds. And we had podiums at worlds and podiums at nationals as well. So I think I had 8 out of 10 people podium at nationals that year, and then at worlds, I think everybody but one person podiumed. So that was like when I knew that what I was doing was right, and I loved it. And then the next year, which was this year, when we came into nationals, I did the same thing, but we had a very similar crew, and we aimed to hit pro raw as well as nationals, because obviously there was no worlds this year because APL separated from IPL, and our main focus was to get into nationals and zero pro, which I competed in and a few of the other people competed in. And yeah, like we just built this team where everyone supports each other and we all just compete at the same competitions. And when, like, if I got clients in Melbourne, we'll all get all the Melbourne clients and I fly down there and they'll compete. And then we'll all have like the team down there if it's in Queensland. And then same Western Australia, I've got a few boys now fly over there. They'll all compete at the same competition, and then we all go to nationals together, and then we all get together, we all compete together, we all support each other, go out for dinner, have some fun, whatever, and just have this real good community of like support. So my whole aspect of everything that I've ever wanted in my own like training, I just built into my business so that I had that there. Because now it's like also have a support network when I'm going through shit. My team reach out to me and they're like, "Are you okay, Matt? I know you've been a bit quiet lately." So I didn't only just build a support network for everyone else, I built it for myself as well. So
Yeah, no, I
and
like that,
that's
man. It's yeah, it sounds like you've got further to go as well, and like you said, larger
yeah. And
aspirations to get a gym and yeah.
my biggest goal is to be able to bring that community into a room together on a day-to-day basis. And try and keep that community together with less drama, if you know what I mean. So obviously gyms I've been in before have had a lot of like different things happening, and I just didn't like what was happening. So like I want to be able to create that community where there is a safe network for people to come when they're feeling like shit. They might come home from a bad day at work. I don't want them to come into a gym and think, oh, I gotta go to the gym and I gotta see this person. I want everyone to see each other and be like, hey, how are you? What's going on? You know, and feel like they can talk to each other or do whatnot. So the main goal is just to try and be able to open a gym eventually. It'll be more of a private studio where it's just our clients. Um, but yeah, to grow, I really want to expand and grow and get bigger, um, which is what we're working on at the moment. and just be able to reach a lot more people. We just released an app that we have now all our coaching is done through an app. And we're about to release in January like a program only section, which will be able to help those people who might be struggling financially and can't really afford that elite level, top level coaching or the lower tier coaching. It's like now we've got something that's really affordable on a lower tier, and you have access to like 50, 60 programs from both myself and Diana, some nutrition advice from Zoe, and then you also have I also have Laura Fox coming in, which will be doing some rehab programs for common powerlifting issues or common issues we see in all of lifting. And then also I've got Nick Weir, a bodybuilder, coming in. He'll be doing a bunch of bodybuilder programs, which will be like for male and female, so that there's so much variety in there for such a small ticket of price, and we can still reach those people that can't afford those higher levels of coaching.
Sounds like a good structure, man. Definitely one that I like. I think these days, as we mentioned before, just given the financial state of things for a lot of people, it's good to have all those sort of different levels that people can have, and then also, I'm sure within those systems you'll see people move to different areas, and people that maybe
Yeah.
have that program only sort of thing will then eventually probably want to move up, and they have the ability to do so.
The one thing that makes me sad sometimes is when people I know who thrive in our community go through a rough time and then they can't afford coaching. And I know they'll leave coaching and they're like, it's not because they want to, it's because they have to. And that's why I created this lower tier of coaching. It's because then they can still stay around. Because I myself, I don't approve very well of cookie cutter programs. I've never been a fan of them. They do work, but I don't like them. And I was like, it took a lot for me to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to make a cookie cutter level of coaching because it kind of goes against all my biases. So
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's an interesting one these days because program comes down to the person, right? It's like you can run
yeah,
someone with is able to work at high intensities and is motivated can get a lot out of a shit program, and someone who can't be bothered doing anything can completely waste a good program. So it's definitely comes down to those multiple factors of like the right program for the right person, which sounds like more of the goal that you're after anyway. It's more not
yeah,
necessarily whether what's good or what's bad. It's like the right thing for the right person.
yeah, that's it. And keep people on track. That's all it is.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, Ben, it was great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, we're going to probably talk again soon. And so it's
Yeah,
one of those things where it's weird. It's weird when I guess you do it, especially because we've spoken before, like podcasts in person, you get a lot more out of it. But when you do one that's not in person, but you still resonate with other people and the way they think a lot as well, it's always kind of it's a good feeling. It's a nice feeling, you know what I mean? And I know one day I will end up over your way. My plan, Queensland specifically, I need to really get over to, uh,
yeah.
and then make my way down from there through Sydney, Melbourne. Sort of, it's not as simple as that, but that's kind of the way I need to go because I've just spoken to too many people in different states, and I just need to spend more time over there. I've been to Melbourne, but even then, when I was there, it's like I didn't have enough time to catch up with everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's hard, like, because when you do come over, I'm like, mate, get on this couch. We're gonna have a chat.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, absolutely, and even just meeting people in person, and I've got I guess my own ambition with what I'm doing. I don't always want it to just be a podcast either. I definitely want it to be bigger than that. But obviously, life and finances not always come into it. But there's also a point in life you have to just be willing to to take that sort of next jump. And I think it's something that will be able to happen in the future. And a person like yourself is someone that I would want to be involved, man, because like once again, I've spoken to a lot of people, and it doesn't matter whether someone was strong or fit or shredded or whatever. For me, there's still a handful of people where I speak to someone and can actually be like, that's someone that I actually feel like I said, there was you resonate with them. You're actually on a very similar kind of way of thinking, you have a really similar mindset, you actually get along. And so Sam Murphy is someone that I shout out here, who shouts, who sponsors me through Power Pit. Just another person who we're pretty different dudes, and we're interested in a lot of different stuff. He's a 125 kilo bodybuilder, so
Yeah.
physically we're very different. But it's just been someone who's always massively supported what I've done, and we can have conversations about things where we can totally disagree, but we're 100% there with each other because we just are on that level. And
Yeah,
so
totally.
yeah, it's
There's
something.
always there's always something to learn from someone that disagrees with you. But so like a lot of people I find, I just want to add in there. And this is something that I've learned over the years too, because I've obviously had my biases and used to, when you're a coach for the first time, you're always like, nah, this is the way, the only way, and this is the way it goes. But you just actually block your own learning when you don't listen to someone's argument. So the thing that I did with River City when I brought other coaches on, and I said to D, I was like, I'll teach you how to coach, but if you ever have something to challenge my method, challenge it. I don't want you to have Matt's River City method. I want you to have D's River City method. And I said, I want you to build your stuff based off what you learn off me, Will, whoever you do like mentors with and mentorships with or whatnot. I want you to just build the D River City version of programming based off what you learn. So then you can challenge me and I can actually learn from you. So, um, having an open mind to someone when you're in a like a someone's challenging maybe things about you is one of the best things you can have. Like it just teaches you so much about um growth and who you can be. Like one of the things that we just went through zero pro prep, and D went in wraps for the first time, and she looked up all these videos about some. And then I was trying to get her to squat in wraps, but she's a very hingy squatter, and she's like, "Oh, I'll just break at the knees a bit more." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you can try it. Never heard of it before, whatever." Broke at the knees. Squat was perfect. And I was like, "I just learned something from you, and you've been coaching like 8 months." I'm like, so it's just like if I didn't, oh, nah, you can't do that. Well, you got to do it this way. This is the way to do it. I would never learn that. So now when my clients do what she did, I'm just like, break at the knees more. So yeah, that's just a simple explanation and how it would be just to stay open minded with things when you're in like a bit of a challenging situation with people. Don't be biased and argue back because you think that your way's the only way.
Yeah, definitely, man. So I've worked around enough people now. A lot of people that are a lot more highly qualified than me, or even smarter than me, whatever. And
Yeah.
I've always been like, no, I'm here to learn because otherwise I'm wasting my time around people if I'm not getting everything I can from them. And so it's a big part of it. But I've definitely gotten something from this conversation, man, and I think that's I know when I've had one of these kind of podcasts because it's like it's sort of we sort of started and then we went with it and it's like that's when I know it's going to be. There's a lot of good stuff in this one that I think will resonate with people and I'm looking forward to hearing back from what anyone thinks and also just kind of obviously I'll go through it and
Yeah.
have some snippets out for it as well and I think there'll be some really good stuff in there. So
Cool.
yeah, look, I'll do what I always do, and I'll shout out Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham. But a big shout out to you for coming on, man, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
Yeah.
I will do what I always do. I'll shout out my mother, and yeah, look, man, I really appreciate your time today, and I
Yeah.
think that
Thanks.
yeah, a lot of valuable things to say.
Thanks, Heath, for coming on. Having me on. I really appreciate it more than anything. So,
No, it's great, man, and like I said, I appreciate you always listening, and I'm looking forward to talking more in the future.
all right. No worries. Thanks, man.